Lisa Bowen.
Thank you, Dibble-Lywydd.
Take offence when I say that this might not be the most exciting of bills, albeit Adam Price and Alun Davies has made a valiant effort to try and muster excitement surrounding the King's Printer for Wales and subordinate legislation. But what this legislation does do, it solves technical problems, it tidies up the statute book, it provides formal recognition for Welsh law and makes the publication more logical. I'm pleased that the legislation codifies how secondary legislation is scrutinised. It will make it far easier for people to understand the process rather than just knowing what slowly developed over the years. Now, as Alun Davies mentioned, we all agree that good scrutiny leads to better legislation. Now, how do you foresee the 3 new procedures will improve how secondary legislation is scrutinised, would give that great opportunity for the Senedd to scrutinise secondary legislation, because they can be very important indeed. It was secondary legislation which enforced COVID lockdowns, for example. They can be life-changing. Therefore, there needs to be that opportunity to properly scrutinise them. Do you also believe that given formal recognition to Welsh statutory instrument would lead to a greater number of them being published bilingual, which we aren't seeing at the moment? I'm sure that we all here want to see a situation where legal aid and legal representation is available for everyone who needs it. However, that is not the situation, and it's unlikely to change anytime soon. The law is complicated, very complicated, even for lawyers, let alone those unrepresented. And any work done by the Welsh Government to make the law more accessible can only be commended. I think I admitted to you before Cwnsler Cyffredinol how I was caught out around 15 years ago for relying on legislation published on the legislation.gov website, which had been previously repealed many years beforehand. It just shows the complication and just shows how we need to make it far more accessible. As we are a fairly new legislature here in Wales, it is far easier for us to remove repealed acts and to tidy up acts than it is in England with the English statute book. How often do you foresee, Cwnsler Cyffredinol, that we'll see a repeal act here in the Senedd? Because I believe in Westminster they haven't seen a repeal act in over 12 years. I do think it's a shame that when Mick Anthony of Cwnsler Cyffredinol, he mentioned about publishing legislation in Welsh and English side by side. Now, I know there can be some developments in technology which will make the fact that you don't publish it side by side necessary, but I'm just concerned that not having the Welsh language side by side to the English language will make it far easier for the Welsh language to be ignored. How will you ensure that isn't the case? And will you ensure that when the legislation is published, that it is as accessible and as understandable to as many people as possible, especially those who are unrepresented, who are in a very vulnerable situation? Diolch yn fawr.